Members, if you want a topical break around noon, we'll take the break at that point. Please be seated. Records to reflect the return of the jurors.
Thank you, Your Honor. I told you a few minutes ago that after Sergio Virgilio left the trailer, he didn't stay. He went to his Tahoe. Exhibit 381, which you'll have, is his unit history, which I've mentioned. It's what happened in the Tahoe in his patrol car. So I think 381 is Rich Chrisman's unit history. This is what happened on the day that Sergio Virgilio was in this patrol car. And you see at 998, the 998 call that I mentioned before went out at 12:37. Roll 4, it's probably a typo, means roll fire. And the next thing, suddenly shot barely down the line. Then 12:40, and then at 12:49, EXDQ, personal name, Danny Rodriguez, G1, Daniel DOB, 3/15/1981, sex, male. Why did he go back to his Tahoe and run Danny Rodriguez later? It appears that we know he did. We know he left. We know he went over to his Tahoe. Mr. Martinez asked you yesterday, why would Sergio Virgilio make this up? Why would he tell something that's not true? Why would he do that? I'm sure that he'll say Rich Chrisman has a motive to lie because he's on trial here. But the same question, putting that aside, why would Rich Chrisman have a reason to tell you what he did that is consistent with the evidence? And the answer is he would have no reason to do that. But why would Sergio Virgilio? I mean, it's a question that you'll have to consider, of course. I've tried to give you reasons and proof as to, it's clear he is, at least he's said A here and B there. I've tried to give you physical evidence that shows what he said is not correct. Okay, Sergio Virgilio is a man who goes to a domestic violence call with a steno pad and a victim's rights in his hand. Officer Barrios told you, not only are you not supposed to do that, you're taught not to do it. Common sense tells you that that's not how a police officer would go to a call that is fraught with this much danger. But that's how he operated. He went without a vest. He didn't wear a vest. Didn't have to. It wasn't mandatory. It was his choice. But clearly, if you don't have a vest and you're in a tight situation, you're going to feel a lot more vulnerable than if you have a vest, like Rich Chrisman had. On his direct testimony, here's what he told you his thoughts were as after he picked up this call and was driving to the scene. On page 2. As you're driving along or around looking for this trailer, is there in your mind any belief that there are any weapons involved in this particular call? Answer no. Well, why would he say that? I mean, I would suggest to you that the evidence is from a domestic violence call, that would be something that ought to be in your mind. Did he have actual knowledge? Well, of course not. But he ought to be thinking about it, but he wasn't. Is there any issue in your mind at that point about officer safety? At that point?
Answer? No. No.
Not to him. Because that's not what he was thinking about. So he went with this mindset. And I suggest that's probably how he went to all calls. But he got there and he got himself in a box. Not that box, but a moral police officer line of duty box. One of the problems he had is he was afraid of dogs. And he had a legitimate reason. When he was 9 or so, his 10-year-old sister saw her. He saw his sister's face ripped off with the dog. That would leave a lasting memory on anybody. And I suggest it left one on Sergio Virgilio. And so when Officer Chrisman went in, and there was this pit bull barking and growling and showing its teeth, Officer Virgilio decided the best place for him was outside. Now, at least you think that he said he wasn't afraid of dogs and he wasn't afraid of this dog. Let's hear what he told Sergeant G and Sergeant Klum.
I was so worried about going hands-on because of the dog. I thought that if I would get in this little area here, this dog was going to come.
Okay.
So I was maintaining a distance.
So you had a fear that the dog may be aggressive?
Yes.
So I suggest that my argument here is correct. He was afraid. And what he didn't do is he didn't do his job. He didn't back up his partner. He didn't go in there and help Rich Chrisman. He left his partner, except for a few seconds, all alone in that small spaced trailer with that person high on methamphetamine and stayed out here. And when the balloon went up, when things got tight and everything was over and he hadn't done his job, he'd stayed out here, because if he'd have gone in there and gone hands-on and stayed hands-on and worked through and fought through the pepper spray, used his other taser if it didn't work, and stayed in there and helped Rich Chrisman, Danny Rodriguez would be alive today, because there would have been 2 people to help take this person all jacked up into custody. But he didn't. And he went out to the trailer, he went out to his Tahoe, and he ran Danny Rodriguez. He wanted to find out what the heck was all about this guy, what had gone down, because he knew he was in trouble. If he said to the commanding people, the people for whom he worked, Sergeant Mattson wanted to talk to me, oh, I'm not going to talk to you. If he had said, I stayed out here while my partner had to fight this guy all by himself, but I did nothing, and when the pepper spray came out, I ran out the door like I'm not trained to do. If he had said all that, he knew that he'd have been in trouble. Who would have wanted to work with him as a police officer ever again if he'd have told the truth? He'd have lost, well, he was in trouble. And he knew it. And that's why he went and ran Danny Rodriguez. And that's why he sat or stood or whatever he did for an hour or 2 before he talked to Detective Porter and told him his version of what happened. He didn't know that the physical evidence wouldn't back him up, and he took some risks, and they didn't work out. He didn't know they would find stippling on Danny's left arm, so he did this, hey, that's what I saw. He didn't know that the stippling would prove him to be incorrect. And he didn't know if he said to Detective Porter, I'm standing right here. There's the photo of the stippling. And he didn't know if he said, as he did to Detective Porter, that I was standing right here, at least at one time, and as he told you, that there would have to be blood on it. Unfortunately, there's not as much blood there as there was at the time. He didn't know that. Because he didn't have any blood on his uniform. So that's why he said what he said. He knew he was trained to do something else. I mean, it's called backup, not back out. It's called backup for a reason. He was supposed to be in there, and he wasn't, and he knew if he said, this is where I was, out here, for all but a couple of seconds. And when I went in, I did what I was trained not to do. I couldn't have got out of the academy if I'd have done at the academy what I did to Rich Chrisman in there. If I'd have ran out of the academy, he wouldn't have been a police officer. He knew if he said all that he was in trouble. So he didn't say all that. He said something else and put Rich Chrisman in the box. Because all he wanted to do was what he was trained not to do. He wanted to leave because he was afraid. He was afraid to go in and afraid to help. This is what he told Sergeant Adjournment.
We're out of here. We're out of there. I was ready to go at any time.
At the prior,
I wanted to retreat.
That is not what he is trained to do. And so I suggest to you that with all of this evidence that there is good reason to believe that what you heard from Sergio Virgilio is not what happened the afternoon of October 5th. That what you heard from Officer Chrisman was, A, it was what he was trained to do, and B, it's what he did. Judge, could we break for lunch?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take the lunch break at this time. Please remember the admonition, keep an open mind, don't discuss the case. We'll start up again at 1:20. Jurors are excused.